Hello, sixth grade. So starting today and for the rest of the year, in the back, we're going to be doing videos on current issues and then a worksheet that combines the mathematics you've learned this year and in previous years with these current issues. So you are going to be graded on how well you do with the questions in this video. And that is going to be your exit ticket grade for the day, since you are spending the whole time in this class in the back. We are not switching to go up front. So your exit ticket grade is how well you answer the questions in the video. I thought that for today, a really applicable topic to talk about would be standardized tests, since all of you finally finished all of the standardized tests for the year. After 3 whole rounds of testing, you guys are finally done. So we're going to be focusing on the question of whether these tests are effective. This has become an increasingly big topic of conversation over the past few years with the implementation of Common Core, which is the PARCC test, which you guys just experienced firsthand. It's a big change. It's a much more difficult test. So everybody is talking about, okay, are standardized tests the best way to be measuring student achievement? So fill in these pros in your pros table. And some pros of standardized tests, or some good things about standardized tests. First, 93% of studies on student testing found that these tests had a positive effect on student achievement. That means that 93% of studies found that they were pretty good for students doing well. Second, most parents do approve of standardized tests. Third, it works for China. China is number 1 in education in the world, and they have been doing standardized tests for a long, long time. So why couldn't it work for us as well? Fourth, standardized tests are unbiased. If Mrs. Perez and I were to make your end of year exam and then grade you guys on it, it would be really hard to compare that grade on that exam to the grade at another school that another 6th grader got at their school by the test made by their teacher. Because they're different tests, different teachers doing the grading, it's biased, meaning that the teachers are affecting what the scores are. So it's really hard to compare those scores, and that's not the case with standardized tests. You can compare standardized test scores across the country. You can tell how well DTA as a school did compared to any school in the country. Lastly, they motivate both student and teachers to perform during the year. Some cons or bad things about standardized tests. It's actually been found that in the past decade, while we've been really focusing on standardized tests, it has not improved student achievement. The US is not ranked any higher in student achievement than it used to be. Second, it causes severe stress in some students, which some of you guys have experienced firsthand. And it particularly applies to younger students. It's really stressful to take these end-of-year tests. Third, it encourages teachers to teach to the test. Teach to the test means that teachers are teaching the information that will be on the test instead of teaching the most relevant, most important, most interesting information. They're just teaching kids to be successful on a test. This isn't always true, but standardized testing does encourage teachers to do this, which is not the best method of teaching. Fourth, it narrows the curriculum, so you spend more time in math and ELA, which you guys experience at DTA. You spend twice as much time in math and ELA than any other class. And so this means that you're spending less time in arts, social studies, science, which are important subjects as well. Lastly, it's an unreliable measure of student and teacher performance. A lot of things can affect your standardized test scores. It's been found that race, socioeconomic background, all of these things can affect student performance. And it's not really a successful measure of teacher performance either. And it's really hard because the test measures such specific skills that you could have learned a lot throughout the year and be a really well-rounded student, but not have mastered those specific skills that the test is measuring you on, and then you won't do well. So the last part of this video is going to be watching clips from this John Oliver YouTube video. So John Oliver used to do Saturday Night Live. He's a pretty famous comedian, and recently he did one of his shows on standardized testing. I'm going to skip around because some of it's not totally appropriate, and it's a 15-minute video. So we are going to start at 3:54.
Explosion of testing can be traced back to the 90s, when you probably remember stories like these about the state of public education.
When 40 nations recently took the International Math and Science test, American students scored near the bottom.
And that must have hurt, especially because you knew the French children weren't even trying. Go on, play with your silly numbers. They tell you nothing of the true nature of the soul. I weep for you. In response to statistics like that, in response to those kind of statistics, President George W. Bush, on just his third day in office, announced his No Child Left Behind program. It passed Congress with bipartisan support because, of course, it did. Voting against No Child Left Behind is like voting against No Puppy Left Unsnuggled. What monster would do that? His name is Patches, and he needs love! The program was designed to be data-driven and involve testing children every single year in order to identify and fix failing schools.
An accountability system must have a consequence. Otherwise, it's not much of an accountability system.
It's hard to argue with any of that. Unfortunately, accountability is one of those concepts that everybody's in favour of, but nobody... No Child Left Behind increased the number of federally mandated tests from 6 to 17. And the fixation on testing was something which our current president seemed to be against as he ran for office.
Don't tell us that the only way to teach a child is to spend too much of a year preparing him to fill out a few bubbles in a standardized test. We know that's not true.
Wow, that man knew how to pander to teachers. And you know what else? There should be pool tables in the teachers' lounge. And every year you should be able to slap one parent. Vote for me. I'm out of here. I'm out of here. Vote for me. But once this president took office, he didn't get rid of tests. Instead, he added his own education initiatives like Race to the Top, which encouraged states to adopt the Common Core, which... But look, he does have a point. He does have a point. If a test fails to reflect ability, there are human consequences. Because one shy Florida 8th grader who had a near-perfect score in her advanced language arts class was asked to leave it last year due to her inexplicably low scores on the FCAT. And last fall, she told a school board meeting exactly how that felt.
Every year I do good in school, but I get low test scores on the FCAT, and it feels like a punch in the stomach. This is unfair, and I don't want to lose my opportunity to take my advanced classes or get better education because of this one test.
That is just awful. I take back everything I said about wanting to take a standardized test. In fact, you know what? Bring out the monkey! Bring out the monkey! No. That's not only difficult, it's often illegal, because both states and companies have fought to keep test questions more questions from these tests. But unfortunately, that's not only difficult, it's often illegal, because both states and companies have fought to keep test questions secret by having teachers and students sign statements like, "I will not use or discuss the content of secure test materials." And while they'll say that this is to protect against cheating, it does seem odd that even if you see something wrong on a test, you can't tell anyone. Standardized tests basically enforce the rule. Look, we've had more than a decade of standardized testing now, and maybe it's time to put the test to the test. The original goal was to narrow the achievement gap and boost our scores relative to the rest of the world. Well, a 2013 study found no support for the idea that No Child Left Behind narrowed the achievement gap, and our scores on the international tests have not only failed to rise, they're slightly down. And I do not want to hear what that French kid thinks of those results. Oh, all this time and all this money, and your rise to the top has been, how you say, a meandering jog on a treadmill. But all of this calls for a little of what both presidents asked for when selling their reforms.
Higher standards are the right goal. Accountability is the right goal.
And an accountability system must have a consequence. Otherwise, it's not much of an accountability system.
Right, so let's look at that, because as far as I can see, this is a system which has enriched multiple companies and that pays and fires teachers with a cattle birthing formula, confuses children with talking pineapples, and has the same kind of rules regarding transparency that Brad Pitt had for Fight Club. So for Pearson, the other companies, and all the lawmakers who have supported this system, the true test is going to be either convincing everyone it works or accepting it doesn't work and fixing it. Because at the risk of sounding like a standardized test scorer, your numbers are not good. And if it seems unfair to have your fates riding on a complicated metric that fails to take institutional factors into account and might not even tell the whole story, well, you're not wrong about that, but you do not get to complain about it. And if all this pressure to increase your numbers is making you feel nauseous, like you might vomit at any second, then don't worry. I've got 4 words for you that'll make you feel better. Here comes the monkey!
Okay, 6th graders, so this is the end of the video. Go ahead and fill out your worksheet. It's math problems involving statistics about standardized tests, and then you have a chance at the end to tell me and Mrs. Perez your opinion on standardized tests. Good luck.